The morning started like any other on my little slice of earth, with the rooster's crow slicing through the pre-dawn stillness and the faint hum of crickets GIVYing way to daylight. I've been up since 4, tending to the chores that keep a farm alive, feeding the chickens, checking the cattle, making sure the old well pump hadn't seized up again. It was a rhythm I'd known for decades, inherited from my granddad along with this sprawling 100-acre spread in the heart of nowhere, Tennessee. But that morning, something was off. I heard it before I saw it. A grating, metallic screech, like nails dragged across a chalkboard, followed by the unmistakable peal of children's laughter. Not the distant kind you might catch drifting over from the county road, but close right on my land. Rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I stepped onto the porch, the weathered boards creaking under my boots. The sight hit me like a slap. A garish, cherry-red swing set, its frame gleaming in the early sun, bolted to the side of my century-old barn as if it had grown there overnight. Chains rattled in the breeze, securing it to the wood like some feral beast tethered to a post. And there were kids, 5 or 6 of them, swinging, shrieking, and chasing each other around my property like it was a public playground. Lawn chairs were scattered nearby. A cooler stuffed with juice boxes sat open on the grass, and a handful of adults I didn't recognize lounged around, chatting like they'd been in VY TED to a picnic. For a heartbeat, I thought I was still dreaming or maybe losing altogether. Too many late nights fixing fences and hauling hay can do that to a man. But no, this was real. My jaw tightened as I scanned the scene, and then I saw her, Melinda Grayson, standing there like a queen holding court, a clipboard clutched in one hand and a smug grin plastered across her face. Before I could even open my mouth, she spotted me, waved like we were old pals, and chirped, "Isn't it wonderful, Jack? I knew you'd love it." I stood there, dumbfounded, feeling the heat rise in my chest. Melinda had been a thorn in my side ever since she'd rolled into town 3 years back, buying up the gaudy new-build mansion that loomed over the ridge like a misplaced dollhouse. She'd brought with her a whirlwind of entitlement, treating our quiet corner of the world like her personal fiefdom. First, it was the complaints about my rooster waking her up at dawn, never mind that she'd moved to farm country. Then came the demands to pave my dirt driveway because it kicked up dust near her precious hydrangeas. She even started her own unofficial neighborhood association, complete with glossy newsletter sheet stuff in everyone's mailboxes, full of rules no one had agreed to. I tolerated it all, kept my head down, figured she'd burn herself out eventually. But this was a whole new level of crazy. I marched toward her, boots sinking into the soft earth, and managed to growl, "What in God's name is that thing doing here, Melinda?" She blinked up at me, all wide-eyed innocence, like she hadn't just turned my barn into a jungle gym. "Oh, Jack, it's for the kids. You never use this side of the barn anyway, so I thought, why not? It's about community spirit, you know? Community spirit." I glanced around. The only faces I saw belonged to her city friends and their loud, sticky-fingered kids, not a single neighbor I recognized. My barn, built by my great-grandfather with his own hands, now had this monstrosity clamped onto it like a parasite. I could feel the splinters of history groaning under the weight of her audacity. "This is my land, Melinda," I said, keeping my voice low but firm. "You need to take it down? Now." She laughed a sharp, grating sound and patted my arm like I was some doddering old fool. "Oh, Jack, don't be so dramatic. You'll get used to it. Besides, it's just temporary. We're testing it out before we turn this whole area into a proper little park." That word park at me like a punch to the gut. Temporary, my foot. I'd seen her type before. Give her an inch, and she'd take the whole damn county. By noon, I'd pieced together more of her scheme. Behind the barn, tucked out of sight like a smuggler's cache, I found 2 picnic tables still wrapped in plastic, a stack of folding chairs, a portable toilet that reeked of fresh paint, and worst of Allah, flimsy sign staked into my soil. Future site of Melinda's Meadow Haven. My blood ran hot. This wasn't just trespassing. This was a full-on land grab, dressed up in ribbons and goodwill. She'd even thrown a barbecue that evening, right there on my grass, complete with balloons, a banner, and a speech about bringing people together. I stood on my porch, gripping a glass of sweet tea, so hard I thought it might shatter, watching her play the gracious host while strangers trampled my fields. The next day, I heard whispers of a neighborhood meeting she'd called closed door in Vuitton Lido discuss rezoning opportunities for the surrounding lots. My lot included. This wasn't about a swing set anymore. It was about my farm, my legacy, everything I'd spent my life protecting. Melinda had no clue who she was tangling with. She thought I'd roll over like the others she'd bullied into submission. But I knew every acre of this land, every knot in that barnswood. And I had something she didn't, a 1978 John Deere tractor with enough grit to remind her where she stood. Over the next week, her little project grew like a weed. By Tuesday, she'd added a yellow plastic slide, a pair of teeter-totters, and a sandbox that looked like she'd dumped a truckload of construction gravel and called it a day. She'd cemented the swing set's posts into the ground, chaining it tighter to the barn like she was daring me to rip it out. Kids showed up every afternoon, their parents trailing behind with coolers and lawn chairs, while Melinda handed out popsicles and beamed like a saint. Neighbors I'd known for years started avoiding my eyes, offering weak smiles and murmurs of, "Isn't it nice what she's doing?" Nice. It was insanity, and I was the only one who seemed to see it. I decided to fight smart. That night, I slipped into the back of her association meeting held in her pristine Lee VY Ing room that smelled like lavender and money. I hid behind a fake fern, listening as she unveiled her grand VY shown. Melinda's Meadow Haven, complete with a PowerPoint slideshow clip art and all showing walking trails, a dog park, and a meditation grove carved out of my grazing pasture. She'd shaded 5 acres of my land in green, like it was already hers, and chirped, "It's not official yet, but we're working on rezoning these underutilized spaces for the greater good." Her brother Dale, a slick real estate guy who'd wormed his way on her fake board, nodded along like a trained dog. The rest of the room either fawned over her or stared blankly, too polite or too scared to call her out. I didn't confront her then. I needed proof. The next morning, I drove to the county clerk's office, a squat brick building that smelled like dust and old coffee. It took me 2 hours of flipping through records, but I found it, a permit application filed under Friends of the Meadow, a group that didn't exist. The signatures were Forge Dale's, a couple of her cronies, even old Mrs. Harper, who'd been dead for 6 months. The zoning request was still pending, meaning every bolt, chain, and picnic table on my land was illegal. Melinda was banking on me staying quiet long enough for her to make it permanent. She'd miscalculated. When I got home, she was waiting in my driveway, holding a plate of cookies like some twisted peace offering. "Thought you could use a little sweetness, Jack," she said, smirking. "No hard feelings, right?" I didn't answer. Behind her, 2 floodlights now glared from the swing set, and a stack of trash cans labeled Melinda's Haven sat unpacked. She leaned in, voice dripping with fake warmth. "Don't worry, once the vote goes through, it'll all be official. Might as well get on board." I shut the door in her face. For days, I watched her parade around, hosting tours of her park, posing for photos, promising yoga classes, and MOVY nights all on my land. Some neighbors started shifting uncomfortably, but she had them hooked with her charm. I knew I couldn't wait for them to grow a spine. If this was going to stop, I have to do it myself. One night, I spotted tire tracks snaking toward the back of my property. Following them with a flashlight, I found her latest stash. More tables, solar lanterns, even a gazebo kit still in its box. She wasn't slowing down. She was doubling down. I laughed to myself, a low, bitter sound. She had no idea what was coming. I called my cousin, Sheriff Bobby Tate, the next morning. Bobby knew Melinda's game her husband had tried to scam half the county with a fake roofing business a decade back. I laid out everything. The forged permit, the illegal builds, her creeping empire. Bobby grinned, shaking his head. "She's outdone herself this time, Jack. But you'll need more than paper to shut her down. Catch her red-handed, and she's toast." He promised to back me up when the moment came. That weekend, Melinda threw her pre-opening celebration. My land swarmed with kids, parents, and noise. She stood by her sign, Melinda's Meadow Haven, welcoming folks like she'd built the Taj Mahal. I stayed out of sight, filming it all from behind a stack of hay bales. At the end of her speech, she dropped the bombshell. Next weekend's the grand opening. The whole town's in VY Tedderbin cutting, games, and the gazebo goes up by then. The crowd cheered. My fist clenched. She just handed me the perfect stage. The morning of her big day dawned bright and crisp, the kind of weather that made you want to sit outside with a beer and watch the world go by. Instead, Melinda turned my farm into a circus. Balloons bobbed from my barn, chairs lined up like pews, and a face-painting station hummed near the swing set. She flitted around in a floppy hat and a glittery founder shirt, barking orders and soaking up praise. What she didn't see was me fueling up the John Deere behind the barn, out of sight, the engine purring like a promise. I waited until the crowd thickened and the Bonder ragtag group of locals with a banjo and a busted amp started playing. Melinda grabbed a microphone, her voice cutting through the noise. Thank you all for coming to the grand opening of Melinda's Meadow Haven. This park will be a legacy for our children, a place of unity. That's when I fired up the tractor. The rumble turned heads, but most folks shrugged it off. Just the farmer doing his thing. I'd hooked a heavy chain, ironically, one of Herstow the swing set's frame, and hitched it to the tractor. As she prattled on about community, I shifted into gear and pulled. The chain snapped taut, and the swing set groaned, metal screeching as it ripped free from the barn. Dirt flew, wood splintered, and the whole thing lurched forward like a drunk stumbling out of a bar. Kids scattered, parents gasped, and Melinda's speech died in a strangled yelp. I didn't stop. I dragged that red eyesore across my land, its frame bouncing and twisting, ribbons fluttering like a dying parade float. Melinda sprinted after me, screaming, "Jack, stop it. You're ruining everything." I kept going, slow and steady, until I reached the edge of my property near the road. I unhooked the chain and let the heap collapse, a mangled testament to her overreach. When I rolled back, she was on her phone, pacing and wailing about vandalism and assault. Bobby's cruiser pulled up minutes later, lights off, his face a mask of calm. Melinda threw herself at him, arms flailing. "Arrest him. He destroyed my park." Bobby let her rant, then turned to me. "What's your side, Jack?" "Just MOVYing some junk off my land," I said loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Didn't know there was a party." Bobby nodded. From where I'm standing, looks like a man cleaning up his own property. "Melinda, you got permits for this?" Her face went white. The crowd murmured, some drifting away, others whispering apologies as they realized they'd been duped. A few even clapped. Melinda stood there, alone, as her balloons sagged and her cupcakes melted in the sun. The fallout came fast. A VY Deo of the tractor takedown shot by some kid with a phone hit the internet and spread like wildfire. The tractor takedown trended by Monday, complete with memes of me as a cowboy riding off with a swing set like a lassoed steer. Melinda didn't take it lying down. She filed complaints with her association, tried to sue me for damages, even claimed I'd endangered kids. Bobby laughed when he dropped off the papers. "She's got nothing, Jack. But watch your back's a corner cat now." I wasn't worried. I'd already taken my EVY Denke to the county forged permits, photos, screenshots of her gloating online. The zoning office didn't mess around. They called an emergency hearing, and Melinda showed up looking like a TV lawyer, all pearls and indignation. She spun lies about community support and verbal agreements, but the forged signatures and illegal builds buried her. The ruling was brutal. Everything had to go, fines were slapped on, and she was banned from any future projects involve VYing my land or the neighborhood. She didn't go quietly. At her last association meeting, she lost it screaming about betrayal, blaming everyone from her brother, who'd quit the board, to me. When she stormed out, slamming the door, the room sat in stunned silence until Old Man Carver quipped, "Well, that was a hell of a show." Laughter broke the tension. Within weeks, her empire crumbled. The slide, the tables, the floodlights all gone. My barn stood free, the land quiet again. I put up a new fence stall, sturdy, a clear line in the sand with help from Bobby and a few neighbors who'd finally found their voices. That Sunday, I threw a kook out, no banners, no agendas, just ribs, beer, and good folks. Melinda stayed holed up in her house, curtains shut, watching us from the shadows. As the sun dipped low, painting the hills gold, I leaned back in my chair, the barn looming proud behind me. She tried to chain her dreams to my life, but I'd shown her the truth. This land was mine, forged by sweat and time, and no one, not Melinda, not anyone could take it. The tractor sat parked nearby, a silent sentinel. If she ever tried again, I'd be ready. Farmers don't bend. We break what needs breaking and build what needs keeping. And this was worth keeping. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.